Hi guys, Chris here. Well, today I want to talk to you guys about tropes. Well, what exactly is a trope?
Ooh, I know this one. One time, my mom, she sent me a box of tropes for Valentine's Day.
Okay, seriously dude? A trope is not a kind of chocolate. A trope is a commonly recurring motive or device used in media. And tropes can take form in many different ways, such as through a simple device, a character, a stereotype, or a technique. So at first, tropes were played very straightforward. So for example, if you have the trope, the butler did it in a crime, every time someone wanted to use this trope, they would play it straight just like the last person did it and have the butler just straight up do it. But after a while, Reddit started catching on and seeing that they were copying the same idea over and over again and running it into the ground. So what they decided to do instead was take these tropes and mess around with them a little bit, play on them. But after a while, even these plays on tropes started sharing similarities between one another and started falling into their own separate categories of plays on tropes. Because of this, there are quite a few different types of tropes that are still used to this day. We have straight, exaggerated, downplayed, justified, subverted, doubled, subverted, inverted, parodied, diverted, deconstructed, reconstructed, zigzagged, enforced, for laughs, for drama, lampshaded, discussed, conversed, invoked, exploited, defied, and implied. But enough about that. Let's move on to more specific examples. I said, let's move on to more specific examples. Somebody get these damn annotations out of my video! Okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, there's not enough time for us to cover every single type of trope that's on our list, but we can cover three big ones: exaggerated, inverted, and deconstructed. Okay, number one on our list of tropes to talk about is the exaggerated type of trope. And this is where a trope is taken to the extreme. It doesn't necessarily have to be for funny reasons or for humor, but it's taken to this point where the normal version of the trope wouldn't go so far. So what I'd like to do to give you guys a better idea of what exactly these plays on tropes are supposed to look like, I'm going to take several examples of one specific type of straightforward trope, and then we're going to afterwards compare that to an example that uses the same type of trope but gives a different version, a different take of that trope. So for instance, for this one, we're gonna have 3 or 4 examples of the straightforward trope, and then we're gonna compare that to an exaggerated version of the same exact type of trope. So for exaggerated tropes, we're gonna be looking at the specific trope, quote unquote, cool guys don't look at explosions. And this specific trope is usually used in not only superhero movies, but action movies in general, or TV shows. And in this trope, you usually have a scene depicting a character walking away from unflinchingly an explosion, which is captured in slow motion, such as these specific scenes from Iron Man, Spider-Man 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and even the Korean movie Windstruck. So now what we're gonna do is take the trope where characters walk away from explosions after they've done something cool and exaggerate it to where character will walk away from an explosion after doing something just normal or okay, you know, just alright. We'll see how that works out. So you see, when we take the trope and exaggerate it in this way, it becomes humorous and it loses its sort of dramatic appeal. Just know that this humorous effect isn't the only effect you can get out of exaggerating a trope. This is just one that the example covers. Okay, now we're going to talk about our second type of trope, which is the inverted trope. An inverted trope is when we take a straightforward trope and make it the complete opposite and flip it around on its head, making it inverted. So for our straightforward example, we're going to be using the singing in the shower trope. Now, in the singing in the shower trope, we have a character who, as the name implies, sings in the shower. Now, this is done for various reasons. Most of the time, it's used to show a character who is afraid to express themselves and can only do it in private, such as in the one scene from the movie Elf, and from this one scene from the first episode of the first season of Glee, the pilot episode. So now that we know how singing in the shower trope is used in a straightforward way, now we can take it and invert that.
Say goodbye. I am thee.
As you just saw, the character could already express themselves pretty well, sing alright, without having to be in private. But once they went into privacy, and they were in the shower thinking that there was nobody else around, then they let loose, and all of a sudden, this character is just horrible and horrid at singing. So in this example that we just presented you with, it catches the audience member off guard because they expect them to be even better in the shower, because that's what the straightforward trope normally does, and plays the exact opposite. So it catches the audience off guard, as well as can also be used for humorous effect. The last type of trope we'll talk about today is a deconstructed trope. In this trope, we take a straightforward trope and try and give it deeper meaning and extend it to a greater extent than a normal straightforward trope would take things. So for this type of trope, we're going to use the example of the Scream superpower trope. In this trope, usually used for superhero movies or sometimes even action movies, what we do is there's going to be a character who can utilize their voice to an extent where it becomes a weapon, such as the character Banshee from X-Men First Class, as well as even in the video game Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the Dragonborn use their voices as weapons. So now what we're going to do is take this Scream superpower trope and extend it a bit more, give it a bit more depth and meaning to it.
There are a select few on this planet who have great control at projecting their voice, who turn this superpower into a means of just mere talent, hiding themselves within groups of singers among others. But there are those rare breed of humans who not only possess this power, but are born without hearing. These are the ones who take their powers to the extreme.
So as you just saw, by making the people that use this Scream to the greater extent be deaf, it gives the actual trope itself more meaning and depth in itself, because it makes sense to say that the ones that can yell the loudest and utilize their voice to the greatest extent aren't hampered by the volume of and the frequencies of which they use their voices. Well, that's about all we have time to talk about for tropes today. So I hope you learned a lot. So now that you guys know what tropes are, hopefully you guys will be on the lookout next time you watch a TV show or a movie and see one of these techniques used. You can be like, oh hey, I know what that is. And an even better thing from this is that whenever you hear people talk about tropes in rhetorical analysis classes such as writing or English, you won't end up sounding like this dumb guy when it's brought up.
I don't know what that means.
Oh Bieber, you're so naive. Well anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned a lot. Make sure to retain at least some of this information that I've talked about, and I'll talk to you guys later.